The following is a Spirit Street production.
Hey, what's going on, man? Just wanted to jump on live and talk a little bit about some of the storylines that are coming up with the Big 12 football season. A lot going on. We're going to cover a couple things. Coach Prime, and is the Big 12 going to be the most, competitive conference from top to bottom? I didn't say best. I said most competitive. Would love your feedback on it in the comments and in the chat. This is the Big 12 Insiders.
Welcome to the Big 12 Insiders, your Big 12 sports show, presented by Synergy Financial Partners. Now let's go to booming North Texas, home of Studio 73. Here's your host, Brian Hanley.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Big B, Brian Hanley. Welcome to the Big 12 Insiders. Look, I am just in here, just wanted to chat with you guys and just kind of, break down some stuff as far as what's going on with the Big 12 season, what some of the storylines are, and just kind of chit-chat about that and just talk about what's going on. Football is here, people. Camps are open, and I just thought it was real important that we just kind of get out in front and talk to you guys a little bit about what's going on with football right now, so especially within the Big 12 Conference. So let's take a minute here and talk about it. First things first, Deion Sanders and Coach Prime at Colorado. Look, they have dominated the headlines in college football for basically the better part of a season and a half ever since he's gotten the job at Colorado. There's been nonstop media attention. Now, has that attention been warranted? I guess you could say yeah, because it's Deion Sanders, but has the club, the ball club, and the university, the team, have they warranted that attention? Well, I would say no, because we saw what the results were last year. It seems like I was one of the few people that were willing to go out on a limb and say, if they won 6 games last year, Deion should be the coach of the decade based on the roster that they had. And they didn't come close to winning 6 games, blown out in several games, just not that competitive. Although they were competitive in some, they couldn't win football games. They had an atrocious offense and defensive line. And that's being generous by saying they were atrocious. And there's a lot of people out there that just weren't willing to go that route, or maybe they didn't understand football enough. Just think about when has a team been good? When has a team been average when they have horrible offense and defensive lines? Like, when has that happened? Because I don't remember that ever being a time where that's ever happened. Well, we saw that at Colorado last year. Both lines bad. Look, you can have all the skill position players that you want. That can be great. This is not high school, people. You can't have bad offense and defensive lines and be able to be competitive. You can't run the ball, and you can't stop the run. 2 things that are essential for having a good football team, and they couldn't do either of those. They were, matter of fact, let's just call it what it was, they were pathetic in both. Well, if that's going to be the case, then, there's going to be some problems that are going to arise from that. And we saw a lot of that last year. We really, really saw a lot of that. So having said all that, look, what do we expect out of Colorado this year? I mean, will they have a bounce back year? Will it be something to where they can hang their hat on? Now, I've been on record, and I'll remain on record by saying I can appreciate the approach that Deion Sanders is taking towards this Colorado job and the coaching job. He is saying, I just want transfers. We're going to dabble a little bit with, recruiting freshmen and that sort of stuff. But I want to get transfers in here, guys that have already played. He is leaning into the transfer portal. That's basically what he's done. I thought it was a necessity a season ago, just because I don't think half the people that were on Colorado's roster in the 2022 season, I don't think half of those guys even deserve to have a scholarship at that level, at the Pac-12 level. I don't believe it. And maybe that's, hey, come on, Big B, you're being harsh. Hey, man, this is the reality. It's just the real world that we live in. I don't believe that. I just don't. And he had to turn over the roster to even be able to get the 4 wins that they got last year. Had to be able to turn over the roster. Now, is that something sustainable? I don't think so. And we'll get to that here in a minute, because I've got some other thoughts on on Coach Prime. But having said all of that, yeah, I think one of the big issues is this coming up season. I think if you're trying to be there long term and you're trying to convince people that you're going to be there long term, you got to start recruiting high school kids. You just have to do that. And loading up on transfers again this year, yeah, I don't know, man. Doesn't lead me to believe like he's going to be there for the long term, but we'll get back to that. But football-wise, this season, I think it's make or break. I think they got to put up something. Look, you can't talk the talk that they constantly do because otherwise it just turns into talk. We've said it several different times on Big 12 Insiders that, what Coach Prime is doing, we're a believer, but at some point you got to put up or just shut up. At some point, all the talk turns into, yeah, it's nothing but just talk. That's all that it is. It doesn't mean anything. Well, if it doesn't mean anything and it's just talk, then what are we doing here? And I think that's part of the problem is that not enough substance, behind what they're trying to put out. I'm picking up what they're putting down. Don't get me wrong. But at the same time, I just believe Coach Prime has got to, they've got to win. They just got to win. Otherwise, nobody's going to believe. This will be the last year because we covered this the other day. If they don't win and they start off the season 2-4, all the fanfare is going to go away. You're not going to hear about celebrities showing up, which I don't even know why that's necessary to begin with. But you're not going to hear about any of that. TV ratings for them. Things are going to start going downhill in Boulder if they start off the season 2-4. They just will because people are going to say, hey, man, he can't coach. What are they doing? What's going on in Colorado? It's not working. And I won't think that it's wrong. They have got to win. Now, I'm not saying they got to win 10 games. They don't have to win the conference or anything like that. I know Coach Prime comes out and says, hey, we're going to dominate. Okay. Win me 7 games. You go 7-5, and I can start believing. Because as quiet as it's kept, Colorado had the worst roster in Division I football 2 years ago. They just did. They were horrible, people. Horrible. So 2 years later, to get the 7 wins, think about this for a second. Think about anybody else that takes a job at any school. I'm not even going to name a name, but any school, and they were coming off, they had the resume of what Colorado did the previous 5 seasons. You're telling me after year 2, if you can win 7 games, that's not a success? Of course it is. Now, people don't look at it as a success at Colorado because Coach Prime constantly talking, constantly saying things about what they should be, what they are. So people will get turned off by that. I understand. But if you just sit back, and whether you like Deion Sanders or not, you don't have to like him. And even if you don't, if you're just realistic with yourself and say, okay, 2 years in, based on what the program had been and what the roster looked like, 2 years in, they've won 7 games. Yeah, he's doing a pretty good job. They come out and win 4 games again. I'm not going to say that. I gave him a pass, and I think a lot of people gave him a pass for last year. They did. Him getting the job based on where they were. A lot of people gave him a pass. Whether he deserved it or not, it happened. Okay, that's fine. But this year, no pass. No pass. In this day and age, in a transfer portal, you can become good pretty quickly. You can be a good football team pretty quickly. Now, let's talk about the future at Colorado. As I was mentioning before, how it's not sustainable for you just to constantly get 25, 35 people in the transfer portal every single year and then turn around and only get 4 or 5 people out of the freshman class. I've said this before, and I'll say it again, and I want everybody to hear me. I don't think Coach Prime is going to stay at Colorado past this season. I think he's going to leave. I think Coach Prime, and again, you can call me what you want, but I think he's going to step down, and I think it'll be a valid reason. The reason he's going to step down, it'll be a medical reason. You seen the way Deion Sanders walks around? You see the way that he moves around with those blood clots in his legs and his toes being amputated? Do you see him walking around and moving around? I think this is his opportunity. Not necessarily his opportunity. That's a bad word. That's a bad statement. This is his way of you know what? I gave it all I could. I got my kids to a certain level. It's time for me to bow out. And he's going to bow out for medical reasons. He gave a lot of money to Colorado. And when I say gave money, he helped Colorado and the city of Boulder earn a ton of money by his celebrity and what he brought to the city. But I think this is what's going to happen. I don't think he's going to be there past this year. You know, I just don't believe it. You can look at his recruiting, like we just mentioned, and you can say, man, yeah, okay, that makes sense. He doesn't recruit any freshmen to come in. He's not in the business of development. His two kids are going to be going to the NFL or at least leaving school. Okay. Does he want to be a head coach long-term in Boulder, Colorado? He says he has, or says that he does, but is that really the case? I think Deion is just on this train of, you know what? I got my kids to a certain point. I've done my job here. We've turned around at least the financial aspect of this program. Whether they do that on the field or not with the wins and losses, I'm going to bow out. And again, it would be, to me, that would be a legitimate reason, because I look at Deion. I saw him at Big 12 Media Days. Now, he didn't look necessarily bad, but he's just shuffling around out there. He's not the same guy. Now, a lot of people aren't the same guy that they were when they were 25, when they're 55. We're all going to be different. Having said that, I just believe he's going to leave, and that would be the reason. I think he's just going to bow out and say it's for medical reasons. I can no longer coach this football team. Now, some people are going to look at that and think, well, all he did it was for his kids, and he just wanted to help his kids out. And you would be right. But in certain situations, don't all parents want to help their kids? Now, look, don't crush me, because yes, that's taking advantage of a university, other kids. I get all of that. But he's a father in a certain situation, and he's able to help his kids get to the next position or place in life that they're trying to get to. Okay. It is what it is. Nepotism. It's in all aspects of life. We don't like it. We don't have to like it, but it's been going on since the beginning of time, and there is nothing that we can do about it, unfortunately. That's just life. That is just life. So that's my thoughts on Deion and the Colorado program. I want him to stay longer. I hope that he stays longer. It's good for college football. It's good for college athletics in general if he stays longer. I just don't think that that's going to happen. I don't believe it's going to happen. But we'll see. We'll see. Moving on, man. The conference as a whole, the Big 12. Oh, look, it's not the best football conference in the country. We all know that. But it doesn't have to be, in my opinion. Is it going to be the most competitive top to bottom? I think absolutely, 100%. 100%. We know that the top people, Utah, Oklahoma State, Kansas State, Arizona, Kansas, those are the favorites. But don't be surprised if you see a UCF in the Big 12 title game, or TCU, or West Virginia. Don't be surprised if you see some of those teams pop up in the Big 12 title game. Just don't be. And it won't be because the conference stinks, okay? Because that's what the outside noise is going to tell you, is that the Big 12 stinks if a West Virginia gets into the Big 12 title game or wins it. They're going to tell you, oh, well, the Big 12's terrible. It doesn't mean that. It just means that it's ultra competitive from top to bottom. For instance, if Mississippi State ends up in the SEC championship game or wins it, are people going to say that the SEC isn't any good? No. Of course they're not going to say that. They're going to say, oh, man, Mississippi State must have been a great football team this year. Well, why can't we give the West Virginias, the UCFs, the TCU, why can't we give those teams their due? Why can't we say that in the Big 12? Why is the national narrative always has to be that, oh, well, if somebody that we don't think is going to win it, if they happen to win it, the conference just wasn't any good? Why? That's what I don't understand, is that it has to be who the media believes it is, or the conference is good. Look, I'm not going to tell you that the Big 12 is better than the SEC. I'm not going to say that. That's crazy talk. I'm not going to tell you that it's better than the Big 10, although I think that gap is a hell of a lot closer than what people want to believe. But I think the Big 12 is still the third best. I think it's better than the ACC. We'll leave them out of it. But it's definitely the gap is closer. What helped the Big 10 is getting in a Oregon. We'll see if USC is any good. Washington made the national title game last year, but a new coach, lost a ton. We'll see how all that works out. But they got helped by adding teams. Okay, I get it. Without them adding teams, and I guess we shouldn't even talk about that because they added them and they're in the conference. But if you don't, how good is the Big Ten? How good is it anyway? I mean, for years, it's been Ohio State, Michigan, and you throw in Penn State because Penn State beat everybody else, but they couldn't beat Ohio State and Michigan. Other than that, the conference was bad. Iowa can't score points. Wisconsin can't move the football through the air effectively. Haven't had a competent offense at passing the ball in forever. Nebraska, terrible. Indiana, Purdue, terrible. I mean, what? Illinois, really? And again, you can't take out Ohio State and Michigan and Penn State from the conference, but you're going to tell me that Big Ten is better than the Big 12? I just don't believe that. I don't believe it. But now I will say, yes, the Big Ten is better. Okay, I get that. But from top to bottom, is it better? I don't know. But the power of Ohio State, Michigan, Oregon, Penn State at the top pushes it ahead. Same thing with the SEC. Georgia, the Alabamas, the LSUs, and now Ole Miss is good. I mean, Missouri's going to have a good season. We'll see about Tennessee. A couple years ago, okay. Last year, not great. We'll see. The SEC is just better. It's better. It's better. Top heavy, but better. But I think it's going to be the Big 12 is going to be the most competitive conference in the country. Going to be a lot of close football games. At least I'm hoping so, but I believe that's what's going to happen. I believe there's going to be a lot of close football games that happen in the Big 12. I do. A lot of competitiveness. I am so interested, and we're going to have the show tomorrow, me and Fitz, talking about some of the best non-conference games, and then we'll get into the best games, the top 12, and all that good stuff. I'm looking forward, and it's early. Utah going to Oklahoma State. Possibly. Now, I don't even think possibly. I think that's the best game in the conference, but we'll see. There's other ones. Kansas, going to Kansas State. Kansas State, going to West Virginia, Oklahoma State, going to Kansas. I mean, there's a lot of good football games that are going to happen within this conference. I'm excited. The one thing that I'm even more excited about are the Utah fans. Utah fans, look, they put up a fight because they didn't want to be in the Big 12. And I understand. When you're at a home and you're happy, you don't want to leave. You don't want to leave. And when that home has been taken away from you for nothing that you did, and then you have to go somewhere else, there's going to be some friction there. And that's what Utah fans put up with going to the Big 12. And I think Big 12 fans were taken aback, like, hold on a second. What are you talking about? You're better than us, or you don't want to be here. And that's where the friction came in. But I think Utah fans, when they get into the conference, it's like, okay, we're here. You know what? This is not so bad after all. I like it here. It's just going to take some time. That's all. Just like anything new. People don't like change. None of us like change. Well, I should say the majority of us don't like change. But once you get into it and you realize, hey, there's no ifs, ands, or buts. We have to do this. Things are changing. We either change with it or we get left behind. Okay. I'm interested to see Utah fans because, number one, y'all know me. I love Hostile. And Utah fans, I've never been to a game there. I've seen several on television. I've talked to several people. They say that place is hostile, and I love it, every bit of it. And that's what they're going to find out about some of these road games or where they go to in the Big 12. It is a hostile environment. And I don't mean like they're throwing batteries at you. or anything like that, the opposing team. I'm not talking any stupid stuff like that. I'm just talking about strictly it is a hostile environment, and I love every single second of it. I absolutely love every single second of it. So I'm really interested in seeing that. I'm interested to see what Utah brings to the table. Arizona is going to be really good. Not enough people, I don't think, are talking about Arizona. In my opinion, I think Arizona, the quarterback to wide receiver duo that they have, Fafita to McMillan, I think that is possibly definitely the best in the Big 12 and top 3 in the country, if not the top combo in the country. Yeah, I don't even think there's any ifs, ands, or buts about that, man. I really don't. And not enough people are talking about it. They got a new coach. We'll see. But I just don't think enough people are talking about Arizona and how good they are. Again, a non-conference game that's being played, although they're in the same conference because they couldn't change it around, happens early. Arizona going to Kansas State. Going to be a huge football game. Huge football game. And again, it's technically a non-conference football game. So, going to be a great game. But it's going to be a great season. And the thing is, as we sit here at the beginning of August, we couldn't wait. Look, all we talked about and all most people were talking about, because this is what's been happening the last several off seasons, is realignment. And that's all anybody cared about. However, all of that ends, at least for me, once the football gets kicked off. I'm not going to mention it. I don't want to talk about it. I doubt very seriously that anything happens or breaks during football season, because they're not going to want to interrupt any of that stuff. So it's time to just flip the switch, people. Let's turn on our football senses, put on our football glasses, and let's get this thing going. Because, again, I am just, quite frankly, just tired of all the back and forth. It's a necessity. Don't get me wrong. And it's necessity to keep you guys informed on what's going on, things that we hear. So I understand all that. But at the same time, don't we just want the games? Don't we just want the games to be here? That's what I want, man. I just want the games to be here. So I appreciate y'all indulging me. Like I said, we'll be back with me and Fitz tomorrow. We'll be back the rest of the week. I just wanted to jump on, throw this out to you guys to let you know that we were out here. And I was thinking about some college football, and I said, you know what? Let's just jump on a live real quick, and let's talk about some things that have been popped up. You guys have been sending messages on what you wanted to talk about. I love it. I appreciate it. And we will talk to you guys soon, man. See you guys tomorrow.
This has been a GoPowerCat.com and Spirit Street production. Please support this show by subscribing to this YouTube channel or follow us on your favorite podcast platform.